So, good afternoon to one and all. Thanks a lot for joining. And I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Ambi Parameshwaran, our speaker for today's session of One Step at a Time. Ambi, I'm happy to introduce alumnus of our institute. He's currently the brand consultant coach at the brandbuilding.com, an advisory firm. And he's been one of the most popular speakers with a career spanning across 40 years in the corporate India, and primarily looking at advising companies such as Tata, Wipro, Z, TCS, Thermax, etc. He now reads, writes, and coaches leaders across multiple domains as a guest faculty at IIM Calcutta and Ahmedabad and MICN, and currently an assistant professor of marketing at SPJIMR. He is a regular columnist in Business Standard and several other business publications, a distinguished alumnus awardee from IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta, and an AMP graduate from Harvard Business School, a PhD in management from Mumbai University, Dr. Ambi, and a certified CFI certified CEO coach. We are very, very happy and fortunate to have him here to advise our very early stage startups such as Nirman, which is in fact the earliest that you can find in terms of the students starting up. So with that, Ambi, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate your effort. And I think we would really benefit from your wisdom. Ambi?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Satya. Now let me start. Okay. So Satya, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, Ambi, I'm able to see your screen quite well.
Yeah. Okay, good. So thank you. Thank you for invitation, and happy to be here speaking to all you young people who are examining entrepreneurial opportunities. So what I'm going to talk about today is brand building. What is the basic steps 1, step 2, step 3 of brand building? Obviously, you should be warned that brand building, a great brand cannot save a bad product, but a good product can be taken to the next level by a good brand building skill. So please be clear about that if you have a lousy product or a lousy service, brand building cannot save you. Okay, but if you have a good product, then thinking and applying the good concepts of brand building will be able to help you achieve a greater level of success. And what I'm going to talk about for the next 35, 40 minutes will be about basic brand building. What are the basic steps? What is a brand? Everyone talks about a brand. Today, if you go to a retail outlet and you try selling your product to the retailer for stocking, the first thing he will ask is, "Aapka brand kaun sa hai?" What is your brand? And the next question if he will ask is that, "TV mein ad aata hai kya?" So even the smallest of small grocer today knows that if you don't have a brand, don't give me the product. I can't sell it. I don't have the time. I don't have the space. I don't have the energy to sell anything which is not a brand. Of course, currently in the current COVID problem, we are going through a strange phenomenon, which is that a lot of unknown brands are being sold, largely because the big brands are not able to get the product into the retailer shelves. They're not able to supply it to the retailer. As a result, even small brands are selling, but this is a temporary phenomenon. Once the supply chain is fixed, that will get saved. The second question you may say is, look, I'm going to develop an app. I'm going to develop a software product. What does brand building got to do with it? It's all about, soap and toothpaste. So no, not at all. Branding applies to any product category, whether you're developing an app, developing a software product, or whether you're doing a B2B product or a B2C startup or a B2B2C startup. All these brand building will help you. Again, remember, before you start thinking about brand building, investing in brand building, you got to make sure you have a decent product or a decent service. With that, let me ask a simple question. Who's this man? Some of you who have heard of marketing will recognize that this is the so-called guru of branding, the guy called, Professor Philip Kotler. Uh, he teaches or used to teach at Northwestern University, at the Kellogg School. He's written several books, and on an average, every year about 100,000 MBA students are given a copy of his books to read. He said branding is marketing. Now the next question, therefore, will come and say, where did this word branding come from? So people say that, look, yeah, branding we know, because branding comes from the fact that branding of cows, the iron, that the cows of different cattle of different farms cannot get mixed up. So each farm had to have a particular symbol. Professor Satya's farm probably had an S on it, and the cattle used to be branded S, and my farm may have A, cattle get branded A. But this is how people trace the origin of branding. But in English, we also have a concept called etymology. Etymology is the study of the origin of words. Now, by etymology standards, branding, the word we use very commonly today, brand. I mean, even a semi-literate pan bidi wala knows that there is something called a brand. The word brand actually comes from a Flemish word called brandr, which actually means to burn. So, in branding, what are we trying to do? In a fairly gruesome way, what we're trying to do is to burn our name into the minds of the consumer, or burn our name into the minds of your prospect buyer. Okay, and brand has a complex definition, right? There are multiple definitions of what is a brand. For example, this is a definition from American Marketing Association. Says that brand is a name, term, symbol, or design, or a combination intended to identify goods and services of one seller from the goods and services of another. So it's basically a name or a symbol. It has helped you to identify your products against that of your competitor and differentiate it in some significant way. Now that's what a brand is. But I like, that's a fairly long definition. The definition which I actually quite like is this one, which says there is a great advantage in name that tells a story. So in my mind, the simple definition of a brand is a name that tells a story. Every brand name tells a story. When I say Tata, it tells a story. When I say Amul, it tells a story. When I say Lux, it tells a story. When I say Apple, it tells a story. Right? When I say Nike, it tells a story. And if you look at Indian brands, when I say Ather, it tells a story, right? To start up from IT. But when I say IIT Madras, it tells a story, right? Every brand tells a story, and brand is therefore more than just a product, more than just a service. It includes a lot of other elements like other images. What are they? It is more than a product or a service. You have to add to that name intangible images that come to your mind. Like when I say Lux, you may start dreaming of, Katrina Kaif in a bathtub. When I say a brand like Boost, you start imagining probably Sachin Tendulkar drinking a glass of Boost with Kapil Dev, right? A brand also cues usage images, and we look at some of those, examples later. A brand has to cue usage images. When do you consume the brand? And the brand also cues user imagery. What kind of user imagery comes to mind? When I say a luxury brand name, when I say Rolex, what user imagery comes to you? And when I say Timex, what user imagery comes to you? It dramatically different for different brands. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take 3 short stories, which some of these I was involved with. So this is a story of a son of a chemical company in Mumbai. He wanted to enter the world of brands. His father's company, made raw chemical, which sold. Those chemicals are sold to other manufacturers. But he said, no, I want to do something in the area of branding. So he launched a beauty soap, which failed. Then he launched a health soap, which also failed. And then he successfully launched a commodity product, which failed. Then it succeeded. And then after it succeeded, he launched a basic food product in 1994. That became a success. He managed to sell his brand, just the brand. When I say, selling a brand, Here are cases where companies are willing to pay 145 crores for the brand name. Okay, when he sold his brand, he sold it for 145 crores. What he sold was just the brand name. There was no assets. There were no other assets. There was no factory to be sold. There was no land. There was nothing. Just the brand name. And he had invested 40 crores in building the business, and he made a profit of 100 crores. And this is a brand which many of you may not even be aware of. I think it is still available in some parts of India. The brand called Captain Cook. And let me play one ad from the series which we had done for Captain Cook then. So we were involved, me and my team at FC Vulca were involved in building the brand. The brand then got sold to International Best Foods, and International Best Foods then sold the brand. I mean, International Best Food actually got sold to uh, Unilever, and then Unilever got the brand in India. Unfortunately for Captain Cook, Unilever already had a brand called, I think, Annapurna, and they decided not to focus on Captain Cook, and they focused on Annapurna. But the fact is that the person who launched Captain Cook managed to exit the business with a fairly hefty check in his pocket. Now, let me talk of another example of another brand. This is from an international story. Okay, it's a legendary brand, more than 100 years old, and it decided to do something which no one had kind of done before. And this, in fact, was a new age, a traditional old age brand, a traditional old package commodity, created a campaign which is better than so-called a lot of campaigns done by the new age brands. And this is a brand which many of you probably have eaten. It entered India 7-8 years ago. Our agency group had launched this brand in India, and it's a phenomenal success in India as well. And this is a campaign I'm going to present to you as a case study file. And after that, I'll tell you a little bit more about how good this campaign was. So some of you who may have seen ads of Oreo in India would remember that Oreo advertising was based on this ritual. We call it brand ritual, which is twist the Oreo two sides apart, lick the cream, and then dunk it in milk and eat the cookie and then drink the milk. So it was, the campaign used to be called globally as twist, lick, and dunk. So what they took was this one part of it. They called it the daily twist, which was like the twist of the cookie, and they made it so interesting. And this became a case study at Harvard Business School when I visited Facebook 6-7 months after this campaign had run. They mentioned it as the most popular campaign that year on Facebook. And interestingly, and Satya, Professor Satya will know that in America, the biggest sporting event is what they call the Super Bowl, when they play American football. And I think it's the last Sunday of every February. And that particular year, there was a blackout. Power went off in the stadium. So for 30 minutes, there was no game. And in America, it's a big thing that the entire family gets together, friends get together, they watch the football, they drink a lot of beer, eat pizza, etc. But one of the important things about the entire Super Bowl phenomenon is that they watch the ads. And the ads in the Super Bowl are as important as the game itself. And several brands create advertising which runs only on Super Bowl. So that particular year, there was a blackout. And in the Oreo team, someone tweeted a message saying you can dunk it in the dark. And they tweeted it, and they also put it on their Instagram and Facebook page. And that got retweeted several thousand times during that half an hour break in the game. And the next day, when both Wall Street Journal and Ad Age put out their list of the top 10 ads of Super Bowl, that one, which is you can dunk it in the dark, was the #1 rated ad. Now the question is, it was not even an ad, right? It was a Facebook post, it was an Instagram post done by the brand on their own brand page. So that's how the whole world of branding and advertising is changing. But to get that kind of followership on their Facebook and on their Instagram page, obviously Oreo spent a huge amount of money, and they used the top talent available in industry to create this daily twist campaign. The third brand is something from India, which is an MBA, had joined an FMCG company, and he had an interesting epiphany, because every 2 weeks he used to find the Business India come into the office, and people grab Business India and look at the last pages with interest. And those days, Business India's last pages used to contain appointment ads, ads for product manager, accounts manager, finance executive, etc., etc. So he said, why don't we start an online job portal? And that's how he raised a little bit of, started on his own. After 3 years, he raised a little bit of VC money, and then he came to our agency to say what kind of advertising should he do, what kind of branding should he do. And the brand I'm talking about is Naukri. And the first TV ad we did, let me play that, and then I'll explain a little bit about what happened. So this was actually a very risky ad. So in the agency, this is based on a simple insight, and every brand has a good insight. This is based on a consumer insight. Why do you leave a job? Why do people leave a job? And the insight was, people leave a job for one reason: because they don't like the boss. So that is the premise on which the entire campaign was built. And of course, later there was an even more popular ad, used a character called Hari Sadhu, which became immensely popular. So this ad was a very risky ad, because if you notice, the brand name doesn't appear in the ad till the end. Till the last 5 seconds, you don't know what the ad is for. So it's a very, in a sense, a very risky ad. But in this case, the entrepreneur said, no, I have 2 crores. Let me put 1 crore behind this advertising. If it doesn't work, we'll do a very safe ad later, but let's take take the risk. Let's do this. This turned out to be a success. This followed another campaign. And then InfoEdge went public in the year 2005, 6 or 7 or 8, of 2009. The public issue was oversubscribed by 75 times. When the share got listed, it got a listing gain of 90%. And Sanjeev Bikhchandani, the founder of InfoEdge, was listed in Forbes last year, Forbes magazine, as one of the newest billionaires of India. And of course, he's done a lot of work in terms of helping startups across the country. Okay. So that's another story of a very different category, but again, a brand, Naukri.com, how the brand got built. Now, the question you may say is, why do brands matter? And some years ago, there's a lady who wrote a book called No Logos. She said, look, these branding people are confusing the consumers, conning the consumers. Consumers now know everything. They can figure out that the shoe they pay $35 is the same shoe which is also available for $5 while they pay $35. The book called No Logo, which was very popular. But a year later, brands were not dying anymore. Actually, brands are continuing to do very well. The Economist magazine did a cover story called Pro Logo. The truth is, brands matter to consumers as much as it matters to manufacturers. For consumers, brands matter because identified source of the product, assignment of responsibility, it reduces your risk, it reduces your cost of searching. It is a promise, bond, pact that you make with the producer. It's a symbolic device. And it's a sign of quality. You know, when you use this brand, you get particular quality, right? And as far as manufacturers concerned, a brand means it is my brand, therefore no one can tamper with it. It is mine. I can trace it. I can legally protect myself. It's a sign of quality. It means I can endow my brand with certain associations like Lux or Amul. And it's a big competitive advantage. And on a bad day, I can sell my brand and make money. And of course, if a brand becomes very successful, I can launch new products under the same brand name and I can get more and more financial returns. So brands matter not just because manufacturers make more money out of brands. Brands also matter because consumers like brands as a symbolic device, like brands because it saves them a lot of time and effort. The big question is, you say, look, I'm doing a startup. Do brands matter for me? Well, it does, right? Today, brands are everywhere. You know, brands can be a physical product. Brand can be a circle. You know, Google is a brand, right? Retailer and distribution. You know, Amazon is a brand. Shopper Stop is a brand. People and organizations. You know, IIT is a brand. Narendra Modi is a brand. Sports and arts and entertainment are all brands. Like Disney is a brand. IPL is a brand. Geographic locations are brand. For example, Kerala, God's own country, is a brand. And again, ideas and causes, whether it is CRY, World Wildlife Fund, these are all brands. And interestingly, even movies have today become brands, right? You have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 of movies coming out. In fact, there is a movie franchise which is probably 50 years old, which in fact postponed the movie release to the end of the year, the James Bond movie franchise. But, you know, Mark Harris, who reviews movies in GQ magazine, said this, that nowadays movies itself has become a brand. And the problem is, you know, a brand by definition has to be familiar. And a movie by definition has to be new. So brands like James Bond have managed to refresh every time they make a James Bond movie. They keep certain core as basics, but they add a lot of new things. And that's the only way you can keep getting consumers to come back and see the movie. Sometimes you don't get it right. For example, I think some movie series, after the first series, first movie, second movie is I think Pirates of the Caribbean is an example where the second movie definitely is worse than the first one, and the third movie is worse than the first and the second. And no, thank God they did not make a fourth series in the Pirates of the Caribbean. I loved the first one. I went and saw the second one. I didn't see the third one. Right. So even when you're extending your brand franchise, you need to make sure that you don't destroy your brand franchise by doing the wrong things with your brand. Okay. And there are classic challenges today to brand builders, right? And this applies to whether you're a small company or a big company. The first is, of course, today consumers are becoming very savvy. Markets are becoming more and more mature. There is a fair amount of decay in brand loyalty in many categories. and there is increasing trade power. And today, with the COVID crisis, we are seeing consumers picking up even unknown brand because the sheer fact it is available, and therefore we will see some reevaluation of what consumers pay for brands after this COVID thing is over. So the first challenge is consumers, that they are becoming smarter, they are becoming savvy. The second is companies themselves have created more and more complex brand families. Create more and more extensions, and with very little difference between the three, multiple extensions. So sometimes when I work with client companies, one of the things they tell them to do is don't create more brands. Don't create more and more brands, because you're not going to be able to manage it. Keep it simple. Keep your branding architecture simple. Keep it as simple as possible, because everyone wants to become a P&G and a Nestle. That's not going to happen, right? P&G and Nestle have 100-year advantage over new companies. So the strategy is always to see, look, do you really need to create a new brand, and can you keep it under your existing brand? The third big problem is the problem of fragmenting media coverage, right? When Mahabharat and Ramayana ran on Indian television, this is around the late 80s. One spot on Mahabharata or Ramayana, you could cover 40% of the TV owning households of India, right? Today, the most widely watched program in India is IPL, which of course may not happen this year. And IPL delivers 4.5% reach, right? But the big difference is today, out of 300 million homes in India, close to 200 million have television. And if you go back to 1986-87, out of 100 million homes that time in India, probably 30% had TV. So the coverage is dramatically improved, but you cannot try and do it with one spot on one TV. So but the fortunate thing for smaller startup brands is the multiple opportunities today emerging. Whether it is online media, whether it is search, or whether it is Facebook, whether it is YouTube. So if you create a core group of people whom you want to communicate with, you can then use digital tools to communicate with them. The myth again is a lot of people think that digital is free. That I create a Facebook page and I put my message on Facebook, everyone will see my message. No, that's not going to happen, right? Facebook keeps changing its algorithms almost on a daily basis, so it's very difficult to beat them. So they want you to pay. They want you to pay them money. Smart companies have figured out, how much is the right amount, how much to pay, how much not to pay. But the first thing which I tell smaller companies to do, you have to start with your customers. You have to start building a database of your customers and start communicating with them. It could be email, it could be WhatsApp, it could be anything, but start with them. Then the last and the most biggest problem, as I see in brand building, is short-term performance orientation. So especially in companies, product managers come and go, brand managers come and go, and their whole job is to do something and put it on their CV. As a result, brands start changing their platform, start changing their messaging, start changing their advertising, start changing their content strategy, and it goes all over the place. The point is that you need to change, but you need to change for a valid reason, right? And if you're building a brand, you need to think through, what is my brand? What am I going to stick to? And once you decide what you want to stick to, you should stick to that for a year minimum. And if you're a big player, maybe 3 years, 5 years, you should not keep making changes. So what are strong brands? What makes brands strong? And what create brand value? There are 5 simple answers to this. First is rules of engagement. Who is your customer? Do you understand your customer? Do you have a customer vision? So whichever startup you're planning to start, you need to understand who is your customer. What is the customer's pain point I am trying to solve? What is my solution to my customer? That's the first. So whatever you may spend on, what you should definitely spend on is understanding your customer, understanding your customer's pain points, understanding your customer's problems. A lot of companies, a lot of startups don't bother that. But I think that's critical. The second is, what is my brand DNA? What am my brand going to stand for? Is it going to stand for efficiency? Is it going to stand for speed? Is it going to stand for I will reduce the cost? Is it going to stand for I'll improve your efficiency? Or is it going to stand for something else? What is my brand DNA, and stay close to it. Third is, what innovations will I bring? What innovations will I bring into my brand regularly, even if I've launched it, and what am I going to do next year? What am I going to do the year after? Fourth is, how am I going to balance long-term and short-term pressures on my bottom line, right? So these are critical 4 rules of engagement. Now let's go to how do you start building a brand? So there are, in marketing, we call it STP: segmentation, targeting, and positioning. The first thing you would identify is which is the customer segment I'm going to be addressing. You need to probably identify various segments which you can go to, and pick the 1 or 2 segments which you think are the segments which will appreciate your product offering. Once you've done that, then you need to evaluate the attractiveness of each segment and select one segment and select that as your target. I'm going to go after small and medium enterprises of this size, or I'm going to go after the pharmaceutical industry. I'm going to go after the food processing industry. And interestingly, there's a company I'm advising which is into facial recognition, AI-based tools. And one of the things they developed was, if you put their video camera in the retail outlet, it can recognize everyone walking into the retail outlet, and it can count, how many men, women walked in every hour. And if the person's face is already in the database of, let us say, your regular customers, it can even ping the shop manager saying Professor Satyanarayana has walked in, okay, and he is in section 1 or section 2 or section 3, right? Now, this company basically focused on retail, but with the COVID crisis, they figured out that they could pivot to something very different. And they said, look, they went to, I think, 1 or 2 manufacturing companies, and they will put up these, video cameras, and we can tell how many employees are not wearing a face mask, right? And the company said, yeah, how much does it cost? X. Okay, go ahead, do it, right? And they're testing it in their factories, saying that, look, we put up these video cameras and we can monitor 2 things. One is whether people are wearing masks. The second is social distancing. We'll make sure people, maintain the 3-hour distancing. We can create an alarm or whatever to let the factory manager know that so-and-so is not wearing a mask, he's walking around, or he's, there are 3 guys hanging around together, putting their arm on each other's shoulder and chatting. Well, this is a problem, right? So they're pivoting and looking at a new segment. And finally, positioning. What is the differential advantage you offer? And that positioning statement is like, it's like the 10 commandments of of Christianity that you need to stick to. So brand positioning is at the core of branding, at the core of marketing, in fact. And very often when I ask people, what is the brand positioning of Nike, they quickly say, just do it. So the first thing you got to understand is, positioning statement is not a tagline. It is not an advertising slogan. It is not a big corporate document which you write. Positioning statement, or the process of writing a positioning statement, is an exercise to clarify in your own mind and in everyone working in your company, what is the factual reason why a customer should buy your product or service, right? So positioning statement has to have these 8 things clarified in it. Who's the target audience? What is the target category? What is the benefit? Is the benefit relevant? Is it sustainable? Is it believable? Can you substantiate the benefit? And is it defensible as a product differentiator? For example, if you take the brand Listerine, Listerine position statement would read like this: healthy proactive preventers, 25 to 45, want as much from their health in their mouth. Listerine is a germ-killing mouthwash that gives you the confidence of cleaner mouth, because It is trusted to kill germs that cause gingivitis. It is respected by dental professionals because it's been clinically proven and 34% more effective than brushing and flossing alone. So, all positioning, there are multiple types of positioning statements. If you do a Google search on positioning statement, you will get 30, 40 of them. But all of them have three critical boxes. Who's the target segment? What is a single-minded proposition or the emotional key benefit? And what is the reason to believe? If you don't have these three, you don't have a positioning statement. You don't have a positioning statement, you can't do any brand building. So your brand building has to start with the positioning statement. And this is another positioning statement, similar one. Target audience, our product category provide this functional symbolic benefit, and this is support, the reason, right? Or this one from Kevin Lane Keller's book. Again, what is the target person I'm talking to? What is the frame of reference? What is the frame of reference competitive? What is the relevant differentiating benefit? And what is the reason to believe? So if I were to ask you, Hero Honda did this advertising, and in our agency did this advertising many years ago. Fill it, shut it, forget it. It's catchy even today. Many people remember. Fill it, shut it. If I were to say fill it, shut it, forget it, people say Hero Honda without thinking. And some of you probably your dads had Hero Honda. You probably went for a ride on his dad's mobike, on your dad's mobike. But this is not the positioning statement. What is the positioning statement of Hero Honda? What could it be? And I do this, when I do this, I do it as an exercise. I tell you to open a page of paper and start writing it down. Who is the target person this is aimed at? What are we offering? What is the single-minded benefit we are offering? And what is the reason they should believe? Right? So instead of getting you to do it now, let me just put that here. The position statement for Hero Honda is for the value-conscious middle-class Indian. Hero Honda is a motorcycle that offers unmatched fuel efficiency and value for money because its 4-stroke engine gives 85 kilometers per liter and its Japanese technology gives you trouble-free performance. But if you see, we focused on only one thing, which is fill it, shut it, forget it, which is unmatched fuel efficiency. That's what Hero Honda stood for. And of course, I can go on and on. There are multiple brand building tools. Like there is this famous tool which Unilever uses called the brand key. Brand key consists of 9 different elements. So you can write all these 9 different elements, and a lot of companies spend days and months writing all this down. But these are good. It starts with root strength. What is the root strength of your brand? What is the competitive environment? What is the target person? What is the insight you have about your consumer? What is your benefit? What are the values and beliefs? What is the reason to believe? What is the discriminator and what is the essence of the brand? For example, if you take a brand like Dove, the essence is restoring femininity. The root strength is soft. It's a soft soap. And the insight is the fact that soap leaves my skin dry and light. And this is the brand key of Dove. Okay, so once again, root strength, competitive environment, target, insight, benefit, value, reason to believe, discriminator. But this all could be very confusing for you guys. So what you need to remember is that simple brand positioning statement. Who's my target consumer? What is my single-minded benefit? And what is the reason to believe? If you have these 3, you pretty much have a positioning statement. If you have a positioning statement, you can then start creating your brand building campaigns. Okay, the brand building campaign could be your brand name, could be a brand logo, could be a brand identity. Everything is part of your brand building. I mean, don't think brand building only means advertising. It starts with your brand. What is your brand name? Because like I said in the beginning of my talk, brand is nothing but a name that tells a story. So with that, let me just talk a little bit about my brand building Pentagon model, which starts with brand appraisal. Is there an opportunity for the brand? Brand definition, how am I going to position the brand? Brand articulation, how I'm going to articulate the brand in terms of name, color, logo, identity, advertising. What is going to be the brand measurement? How am I going to measure the brand? And how am I going to expand the brand? And this is the brand building Pentagon model, fully explained. It's part of a book I wrote called Building Brand Value. And all this may be too much for you, so I will not take you into this. I just want to say that you need to build a brand. You you need to start with a brand name, identify established positioning, then you implement brand marketing plans, monitor brand performance, and then grow your brand equity. And this is what we do in brand building. And of course, this is a guru of management, Peter Drucker, who said that in an economy that's striving to break old bondage of misery, want, and destitution, marketing is an important force for transformation of latent resources into actual resources, desires into accomplishments, and the development of responsible economic leaders. I'm delighted that many of you, and I remember Professor Anand telling me that 30% of IIT graduates today are either doing a startup or they're joining a startup. It's fantastic, and I think I wish all you guys all the very best. You may not succeed in the first pass, but don't worry. And remember, a brand is a story that is always being told. And so, with that, let me just close and talk a little bit. And these are 6 books recommended by Harish Bhatt. He's a brand custodian at Tata Group, and one of the books is my own. So I'm happy that he recommended my book. And these are my 9 books, which are all available. I think they'll all be available in your library. And if you want to keep in touch with me, you can mail me. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook. So that's, I think we've gone a little beyond our time. So let me just end the show, and maybe if you have any questions, we can handle that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kambi. That was, I think, quite an interesting presentation. We had brands invoke emotions, but we never thought that this much thought went into invoking those emotions. So thanks for that. I think I've been just a consumer. Most of the time we have, I have seen as an advisor in these startup system, the question that when should the students start thinking about branding? Is there like too early or a too late time point where you should think about branding?
I think you need to start thinking of branding from the day you start your enterprise. Because your brand name is going to, help you or hurt you, right? So, for example, if Naukri.com, Naukri is not a great brand name. So I wish, if he had thought of it, probably he would have thought of a different brand name. But you can make it into a success. Nirma is not a great brand name. Nirma is the name of his daughter, but he built it into a great brand. So, but ideally, you should start thinking of brand name, brand identity the day you start your company.
Okay. And before I open it up, I have one more question. So, in terms of branding, there is this possibility to come out with like IIT and all back to you. There is always this challenge that you go out and talk to your consumers, initially saying, "I'm an IIT startup." Now that takes the attention from the startup that you're trying to do and takes it to IIT. So, is that the right way to go, or you would rather stick to the original and proper brand for a while before you pick your own brand?
No, I think I think you should leverage the IIT connection. I believe, let me be a little brutally honest here. When you approach VCs, when you approach angel investors, a lot of time you end up talking to people. Very rarely do you get to talk to the right people. You end up talking to people who are, not really in a decision-making mode. So they keep asking you questions, and I've written about it in my next book about a startup, which actually one of the people in the startup is from IIT Madras. They had to make 100 pitches before they got funding from one of them, and they figured out how to pitch their story differently. So IIT is not going to solve all your problems, but putting an IIT tag will help you. So I would say, why you hiding it? Let it be. If that is going to open a few doors for you, you should let it open doors for you.
Okay. there's a comment from Jaipriya, which says the startup cannot spend a lot on creating a brand. So, any advice for them?
No, I think a lot of today with a democratized world, um, brand identity can be created by a designer sitting in Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia. It doesn't matter, but you got to be clear what you want, right? You got to be clear what you want. What is the brand you want to build? The identities can be built anywhere, and when you start, like I said, it may start with an idea or a concept. Then you need to probably find out which customer I'm going to target it to, and then you start thinking of what is going to be my brand name. Am I going to call it Big Basket? Am I going to call it Flipkart? Am I going to call it Zoho? Right? What is going to be a brand name? And then you start looking at brand identity. And when you have your brand name, it starts there, right? Brand name is where your brand building starts, and then brand identity, then brand positioning, brand claims, etc., etc., etc. Someone has asked about lately. I've seen a lot of hate against IIT on LinkedIn. Don't worry, Satvik. Don't worry about, Satya. Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, Ambi.
Okay. So, uh, let's also do, bit of cautioning, and I do that in IIMs as well, which is, people who get into IIT and IIM today think they are the privileged lot. And you cannot act like you're the privileged lot. You cannot look down upon people from other engineering colleges, because a lot of good startups are coming out from everywhere, right? So you got to be careful about that. Having said that, just because you're an IIT, you cannot lose your humility. So Satvik, as long as you keep your humility about you, you should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Satvik is one of our second year students who's been very active trying to get some products out of the COVID, and he's actually one of our very young entrepreneurs in Nirvan.
Oh, great. Great, Satvik, don't worry. As long as you know you've not lost your humility, you're okay.
So there's a question by Jubin Joe, who's one of our postgraduate entrepreneurs in Nirvan, who's trying to get some products out to the entrenched OEM market. It says, how branding and advertising are different for new startups? Is there a difference between branding and advertising?
Advertising is one part of branding. So, that's the whole purpose, right? I mean, advertising cannot exist without branding, but branding can do without advertising. Several big brands have been built with no real advertising. You just built it with your own, word of mouth. And what is advertising? Advertising is a paid form of communication. So you can actually build a very successful brand with zero advertising. That is, if you build a great brand, you build a core followers, and all the followers start spreading your word, you become a very successful brand. So branding is the mothership, and advertising is one little small ship which goes behind this mothership.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, or we are done? Satya, thank you.
Thanks, Ambi. I don't think we have any more questions here, but I think this is a very different topic from normally what we have in Nirman. We don't really think about branding, but I do realize that it starts from the vision that we set. And Nirman itself is aspiring to become a brand where it's synonymous with entrepreneurship on campus. So I think a lot of insights I was also able to glean from your talk today. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. So thank you, Satya. All the best, guys. All the best.
Okay. Thank you. See you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.